Hello friends, we are going to discuss the answer key for PSIR Mains Paper 1 2024. Before analyzing the questions, let me share with you some important as well as basic guidelines for answer writing. Ensure that your answers have a very strong subject core. Our answers should not look like GS answers. If the answers are devoid of a strong subject core, if the answer is not having the strong subject key terms, names of scholars, key concepts, ideologies, important phrases and jargons, then our answer is not of much worth. So ensure to put forward a very strong subject core. Now the subject core contains these important aspects. You have to mention the key concepts in the subject. In paper 1, you have key concepts like democracy, power, and so on. In paper 2, you have key concepts like realism, idealism, functionalism, liberalism, and so on. You need to mention the names of important scholars. You need to mention the ideologies and the schools of thought. Apart from this, ensure to mention important works of the thinkers. Write important key terms, jargons, and phrases to give a rich subject-oriented content. Apart from this, ensure that your answer is analytical. You should try to associate different topics within the syllabus. If you are writing an answer in section B of paper 1, you can touch the subject core in section A of paper 1, and then you can write from a IGP point of view. Similarly, when you are writing a question in paper 2, even here you can touch paper 1. For example, if you are writing about India's foreign policy, you have to mention concepts like idealism, realism, and so on. Along with this, you can touch certain concepts in paper 1. You can write about philosophers like Kautilya, Mandala theory. So make your answer holistic. Answer should be as analytical as possible. Apart from this, please bring in contemporary examples as well as general facts. Enrich your answer. If there is an opportunity for giving examples from the contemporary period, please do it. Bring relevant examples from current affairs. Similarly, quote the views of important scholars and experts wherever needed. For section B in paper 1 as well as paper 2, you can give more current affairs. You still have to give the strong subject core, but here you can give more current affairs. You can give more from general studies point of view. You still have to quote the scholars, key concepts, ideologies, and you can bring stuff from GS. When it comes to section A of paper 1 as well as paper 2, there should be a very strong subject core. Try to limit current affairs as well as GS stuff in section A in paper 1 as well as paper 2. So section B in both papers can carry more current affairs, general facts, and things from GS. So these are the important guidelines that you should follow while writing answers for PSIR subject. We will now solve the question paper for paper 1. And I forgot to mention, try to cover both relevance and criticism of scholars, ideologies, key concepts, and so on. This will enrich your answer. Write relevance as well as the criticism. In the conclusion, you can once again mention about the relevance and the criticism. You can compare the relevance and the criticism in the contemporary period. You can also cross-compare between different ideologies and the merit in the ideologies. Always ensure a smooth flow in your answers. Start with an introduction, then body of the answer, and end in conclusion. Don't repeat the points which have already been written in the answer. Okay, friends, we will first solve the short answers in question number 1. Behavioral approach to political science. Behavioral approach comes under modern approach. It is associated with Chicago School. The most important scholar is David Easton. Empirical approach is scientific. It gives importance to facts and evidence. The empirical approach to political science got strengthened after the Second World War. After the 1970s, new contemporary approaches came into political science. Before the empirical approach, the scholars mainly followed the normative approach. Normative approach is related to norms and values. It is prescriptive. In contrast, empirical approach is descriptive as well as evaluative. Behavioral approach follows the modern approach in which we study based on empiricism. So these points should be present in your answer. According to behavioral approach, politics is concerned with the authoritarian allocation of values. Value is anything of worth. It could be a material object, ideology, goal, or social ranking. David Easton rejected the use of the term state. Instead of state, he upheld the concept of system. So bring these points. You can give general examples as well as current affairs examples to explain behavioral approach. For example, voting behavior of people showcases behavioralism. The support given by people in some countries towards military regimes, an example of behavioralism. Behavioralism basically studies the behavior of people. As a result, we are able to understand politics better. This is behavioralism. Next question, pluralist theory of state. Pluralist theory of state is an argument against the monistic theory of state. The scholar John Austin spoke about the monistic theory. To argue against the monistic theory, scholars like Lasky and McIver, they put forward the pluralist theory of state. There are many other pluralist scholars, Robert Dahl, Lindblom, and so on. Monistic theory tells that the state is the most important institution in society. According to pluralist theory, power is in the hands of many. Power is dispersed. State is an institution, but state is not the only institution. There are many institutions in society, out of which state is one institution. State wields power. At the same time, state also has responsibilities. These are the arguments of the pluralist theory of state. John Locke and Madison also contributed to the pluralist theory of state. It basically means rule by the many. Rule by the many. Diversity within the body politic. Robert Dahl and Charles Lindblom gave the term polyarchy. Polyarchy means rule by many. Pluralism has greatly contributed to studying politics. It has brought out the latent hidden actors in society. For example, pluralism brings out latent actors like civil society groups and pressure groups. We get to know the importance of these groups through pluralism. In today's context, you can give many examples. You can give the examples of the civil society groups, pressure groups, environmental groups, human rights group, women group, and so on. Political parties also reflect pluralism. Political parties represent different ideologies. As a result, they participate in democracy, try to capture power, power dispersal. Next question, Locke's view on revolution. Rather straightforward question. John Locke, father of liberalism. He is also associated with natural rights theory and social contract theory. As we move from ancient philosophy towards modern philosophy, individual was given importance. Liberalism was influenced by enlightenment of the 17th and 18th centuries and the values of human progress and reason. John Locke is the most important liberal scholar. He gave importance to the individual. He also gave duties to the sovereign. Thomas Hobbes was an absolutist. He deposited all the power in the hands of the sovereign. The people did not have any right to question the sovereign of Hobbes. In contrast, Locke gave duties to the sovereign. The sovereign and the state, they are the caretakers of the people. The duty of the ruler is to protect the life, liberty, and private property of the citizens. Coming to revolution, Locke puts forward a radical view regarding the position of the individual. He tells that individual has a right to question the ruler and even remove the ruler if the ruler is unable to fulfill the duty of protecting the life, liberty, and personal property. Such a ruler or the government puts himself into a state of war with the people. So if the ruler is not ruling properly, if he is unable to fulfill his duty, the people have a right to rebel. So people are not at fault here, the ruler is at fault. In such a case, the government can be removed, but the civil society or the political society need not be removed. State will be there, but the government will be removed. The people have to choose a new ruler. They have a right to choose a new ruler. You can give many examples from the current period. Sheikh Hasina recently lost her power in Bangladesh because she lost the trust of the people. Many dictatorial rulers, they also often lose trust of the people. However, they continue to rule with iron hand. Venezuela is an example where the government has lost trust in the people. It is an example of a failed state. So you can give these as examples to explain Locke's concept of revolution. Next question, decline of liberalism. You have to write about the important tenets of liberalism. Once again, as seen in the earlier question, state is prior to man, influenced by enlightenment, influenced by natural rights theory and social contract theory. Scholars Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, etc. Duty of the state is to protect the life, liberty, and personal property of the individuals. Scholars like Francis Fukuyama held that the history has come to an end with the establishment of liberal democracies throughout the world. According to him, there is no need for another political ideology and a political system because we have already obtained liberal democracy, which is the most advanced, and it satisfies all the aspirations of people. So this is regarding the significance. So write about the significance and also address the shortcomings and substantiate why liberalism is also seeing a decline. Even though liberalism is giving importance to individual, it is giving importance to the abstract individual, isolated self. In contrast, the multiculturals, they give importance to the situated self. So liberalism is criticized by other ideologies, communitarianism, multiculturalism, and so on. They give importance to the society as well as the individual. Feminists also criticize liberalism. Liberals give importance to individual, but they consider the individual as a man. They don't give importance to the concept of gender. These are the criticisms against liberalism. Economic inequality is also a criticism against liberalism. This criticism is mainly brought by the socialist and Marxist. Apart from this, liberalism is currently criticized of failing to uphold two of its objectives. One is economic growth and the other is political equality. Take the example of Western Europe. Many countries still face economic crisis. Now questions are raised about the relevance of liberalism. Liberalism upholds capitalism, but capitalism is unable to ensure the welfare of all the people. It has led to economic inequality. Similarly, political equality is also a question. Even though liberal countries speak about human rights, democracy, rights, and liberty, they also speak about protectionism. They are often against migration of people from other countries. So these questions are also being raised. If liberalism is really giving importance to man, why is it unable to empower the man economically as well as politically? So you should give this content in the answer. You can enrich it with examples: racial discrimination, Islamophobia, and the rise of the far right. Liberalism is mainly criticized by feminism, multiculturalism, and communitarianism. Today, liberalism faces a challenge from the East. There is a concept called Asian values. It is spoken of by Asian leaders like Mahathir Mohamad and Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. According to them, the Western countries, they use liberal democracy and human rights as a veil to bring their imperialism to the East. So mention this criticism also. The rise of China and Russia as successful states is based on collectivism and not on individualism. You can quote this example also. Next question, linkage between power and hegemony. We have to explain the concepts of power and hegemony, then you have to explain the relationship. Power is the ability of actors to assert their will. Power is spoken of by different scholars. Max Weber spoke about power. Robert Dahl spoke about power. But power is an essentially contested concept. There are different conceptions of power. Power can be viewed negatively, it can be viewed positively. Scholars like Anna Arendt, Gandhi, and Marx had a positive view of power. It is called power too. Scholars like Hobbes, Machiavelli, and others had a negative view of power. It is power over, domination. So mention these aspects. Give a strong core. Next, using hegemony, countries can better exercise power. Now relate hegemony with power. As far as hegemony is concerned, the most important scholar is Gramsci, neo-Marxist Gramsci. According to Gramsci, state wields power not just using force or violence, it also uses another concept called hegemony. So hegemony and force, in a combined manner, they support the state. Both reinforce each other. Hegemony is present in civil society, force is present in political society. Mention about Gramsci. Then associate hegemony and power. States generally exercise power through hegemony. You can give examples like the British Empire, current day China, and US. With force alone, you cannot succeed. Force should be backed by hegemony. Hegemony is nothing but a complex web of values, systems, institutions, as well as belief, through which you get the support of the people. This is called hegemony. This hegemony can be used to enforce power better. Take the example of liberal democracy and capitalism. Liberal democracy is very successful today because it is also having hegemony. Liberal democracy is based on elements such as human rights, the role of religion and the church. It is based on capitalism, which gives importance to economic empowerment. It is based on freedom. See, all these elements, they comprise hegemony. So it is difficult to criticize liberal democracy because liberal democracy is based already on a hegemony. The British ruled India for 200 years. The British ruled India not because of force alone, but they ruled because of hegemony as well. The British brought many institutions like police, civil service, judiciary. They gave government jobs to the Indians. They supported the elite sections like zamindars and the princes. So these sections wanted the British rule. Once again, British rule was based on hegemony. Hegemony is used to obtain the consent of the people. Using the consent of the people, you can rule better. You can use power. This is how hegemony and power are related to each other. Today, Chinese hegemony is based on its BRI initiative. It is based on its investment. It is based on its economic assistance to backward regions like Africa. If you take Africa, Chinese hegemony is very successful. Chinese are welcomed in Africa. The Chinese focus on stability in Africa, while the Western powers led to instability in Africa. That is why Chinese are very strong. Once again, their power is successfully implemented because of their hegemony. Second question. Elucidate the meanings inherent in the term political with appropriate illustration. Rather straightforward question. Politics is the activity through which people solve their economic, social, and political problems. It is an activity as well as an art. Politics involves cooperation as well as conflict. Mention the views of important scholars like Aristotle, Bismarck, and others. According to Aristotle, politics is the master science. He called a man a political animal. According to Bismarck, politics is the art of the possible. Max Weber defined the state as a human community that successfully claims the legitimate use of physical force. So try to give different conceptions of the term political. Mention scholars and write what they told about politics. This is expected from UPSC for this question. Try to make the answer diversified as possible. According to Marxist, economic is political. According to feminist, gender is political. View of Marxist, view of feminist. According to liberals, political is based on the freedom of the individual. According to behavioralism, politics is associated with the authoritarian allocation of values. According to scholar Clausewitz, war is nothing but the continuation of politics through other means. So write based on different perspective. Write at least 3 perspectives to diversify and enrich your answer. You can also view politics through its location. Some scholars see politics through the division of public sphere and private sphere. They mainly see politics associated with public sphere. The private sphere is not associated with politics. This view is mainly taken by liberals and conservatives. Since liberals give importance to the individual, they don't want the private sphere to be disturbed. Naturally, they see politics in the public sphere. Politics is also seen through the division of state versus society. Here, politics is associated with state. It is not associated with the society. There is a third view which is very dynamic. This is given by Hegel, the German scholar. According to Hegel, the state as well as the family are divided by an intermediate realm called civil society. Politics includes the state as well as the civil society. It stops where civil society meets the family. So mention the view of Hegel. According to Hegel, state is more superior compared to civil society. Civil society is more superior compared to the family. As you move from family towards civil society and state, you see more ethics. State is more ethical. State is more moral, right? According to Aristotle, politics is an ethical activity. According to Marx and Marxism, politics is seen as praxis, is the philosophy of praxis. Praxis means practical action. The mains examination is a relative performance. Nobody can write all the points. Try to give the important points as much as possible in a holistic and integrated manner. That will do it. Question number B. Marxism is a political theory of action demanding strict compliance with its core principle. Another straightforward question. You have to explain the core tenets of Marxism. You have to mention and explain about key concepts like historical materialism, dialectical materialism, praxis, and you can give some examples to substantiate how Marxism demands strict compliance with its core principles. So Marxism is basically viewing society as a moving balance of antithetical forces. It is a conflict theory. These key terms should be present in your answers. It views society based on conflict. Strife is the father of all things. It is based on dialectical materialism and historical materialism. Marx himself was an economic determinist, materialist, as well as a relativizing historicist. Marxism is scientific socialism. Actually, Marxism followed the utopian socialism of the 18th century. Utopian socialism was utopian. It was not based on science. But scientific socialism, also known as Marxism, it was able to give a scientific understanding of human society. Ensure to write all these points. Thereby, you substantiate how it is a political theory of action demanding compliance with its core principle. Criticized utopian socialism and evolutionary socialism. Marxism is based on war of maneuver. It is not based on war of position. War of maneuver is revolutionary. War of position is not revolutionary. Other core principles: historical materialism, class conflict, social change, humankind as a moral unit of analysis, emancipation of the individual from exploitation. Quote these important points and you can explain briefly. Marxism criticized the 1875 Gotha program of Germany. The 1985 Gotha program of the Social Democratic Party of Germany was based on evolutionary socialism. Marx criticized this program. The 1875 program was based on socialism, from each according to his ability to each according to his work. Instead of this, Marx advocated the principle from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. Here it is only work, here it is needs. So Marxism is more revolutionary, it is more scientific, and it demands practical action. Communism is the final phase of human society according to Marxism. In this final phase of human society, human beings will get freedom to develop themselves. Marxism is not speaking about equality, but it is speaking about the empowerment of individuals. Humans should aim for their self-development. They should make the maximum out of their talents and skills, and they should contribute to the society. This society is communism. In the final society, communism, there won't be any conflict between man and nature, because man would have developed the highest technology to tap nature without destroying it. This is communism. So it is based on practical action. If the human society reaches communism, then the slogan is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. In fact, Marxism sees richness not through money but through time. You are a rich man only if you are having adequate time to pursue your talents and passions. Otherwise, you are not a rich man. If you just earn money, you are not rich. This is the understanding of richness according to Marxism. So it is a scientific philosophy. Next question. C. Nature of relationship between equality of democratic citizenship and liberty of individuals is influenced by economic equality. We have to correlate the concepts democratic citizenship, liberty, and economic equality. Equality, democracy, liberty. These concepts should be discussed. Briefly explain the meanings of these concepts, and then you have to analyze the relationship. It's very simple. Liberty and equality, they can be seen as complementary principles as well as contradictory principles. Marxist, multiculturalists, socialists view liberty and equality as complementary principles. For Marxists and socialists, equality is based on economic equality as well as political equality. Marxists and socialists don't simply agree with political equality alone. For liberals, equality is seen through political equality only. So liberty and equality are seen as complementary principles. On the other hand, they are also seen as contradictory principles. Liberals and conservatives see liberty and equality as contradictory principles. So you have to analyze. It's very simple. First, he explained the meaning of equality. Equality does not mean uniformity in political science. It means establishment of legal, social, and economic conditions in which people will be able to enjoy equally worthwhile and satisfying life. This is equality. There are two types of equality, formal and foundational. It can be also seen through substantive equality and procedural equality. Procedural equality related to formal equality, substantive equality related to foundational equality. Like power, democracy, liberty, and so on. Equality is also a essentially contested concept in political science. Then explain about democracy. Democracy is also a contested concept. The ancient period, democracy was seen negatively. Scholars like Aristotle saw democracy as a negative concept. He viewed democracy as mob rule. According to ancient Greek philosophy, democracy is simply not seen through the number of people ruling. It is seen through the virtues. If people having virtues rule, it is a good form of government. If people lacking virtues rule, it is not a good form of government. This was the ancient conception of democracy. The modern conception of democracy is mainly associated with liberalism. According to this concept, man is prior to state. It is based on the individual. So explain about democracy. Essentially contested. Ancient Greek philosophy, mob rule. Modern concept of democracy views democracy positively. Democracy can also be divided into procedural and substantive, formal and foundational. Then correlate equality and liberty based on complementary principles as well as contradictory principles. We have to substantiate democracy by relating equality with equality and liberty. Complementary principles upheld by socialist and Marxist. According to socialist and Marxist, liberty can be achieved only with economic equality. If people are not economically equal, it leads to unequal power. Is it not? Unequal power cannot give liberty. For example, if I have more money compared to another man, I am automatically more powerful. Using this power, I can control the other man. So, in the absence of economic equality, there won't be liberty. If there should be liberty, there should be economic equality. This is the understanding of Marxism and socialism. Unequal property, unequal power, liberty affected. Next, equality and liberty has contradictory principles. This is upheld by conservatives and classical liberals. Their understanding is just the opposite. You cannot enforce equality. We cannot enforce economic equality mainly. In socialism, economic equality is enforced by the state. But state itself is composed of individuals who are decision makers. So it is actually the decision of some human beings which influences the larger society. So it cannot be democratic. This is the understanding of liberals and conservatives. Man should not be equal according to them. Okay? Liberals and conservatives. Here they are not asking the human beings to starve to death. According to them, human beings should be free. They should be free to use their talent and skills to empower themselves. Everybody should try to prosper, but they need not be equal. If I am earning 50,000 rupees per month, a man having more talent and skill compared to me should earn and must earn 1 lakh per month. Only then it is equality. So equality itself is viewed differently by different scholars, schools of thought and ideologies. The important scholars associated here are Lord Acton, Alexis de Tocqueville and Isaiah Berlin. De Tocqueville and Acton are important scholars here. Complementary principles, important scholars are Lasky and Macpherson. Both are socialists. Third question, 3A. Excuse me. The debate on human rights is caught between the limitations of both universalism and relativism. The key concepts given are human rights, universalism, cultural relativism. Explain these concepts and associate them. Human rights is based on the concept of rights. The scholar Lasky spoke about right. So mention the scholar. According to Lasky, rights are important for individuals. We should establish some conditions in society so that each man can try to be his best. This is how he is viewing the concept of rights. According to universalism, human rights are universal. This view is upheld by liberalism. According to liberalism, the human being is seen as an abstract individual. He is abstracted from society. According to liberalism, all humans should be given equal rights. This is the understanding. There should be equal application of the rights. According to natural rights theory, all human beings are equal by virtue of their birth as humans. The concept associated is called isolated self. Each man is isolated. Each man is considered equal, abstracting the human from the society. Scholars associated are John Locke and John Rawls. The opposite view of universalism is cultural relativism. According to cultural relativism, values and norms are not universal. They are relative. They change across time and space. This is cultural relativism. Thousands of years ago, many of us Indians accepted the Varna system. Today, we don't accept. Why? The society was different 2000 years ago. This is cultural relativism. At one point in time, the society accepted a particular norm. In the current context, we don't accept that norm. We accept another norm, which is equality. Right? So, cultural decides the norm. This varies across time and space. This is cultural relativism. The ideologies associated are multiculturalism and communitarians, Will Kimlicka under multiculturalism, Alistair McIntyre under communitarianism. Here the concept is situated self. In universalism, it is individual self. In relativism, it is situated self. Man himself is situated in the society. We should not see man as the abstract individual. Man himself should be seen as part of the society. He should be seen as a part and parcel of the society. So, situated self versus isolated self. The supporters of cultural relativism argue that human rights conceived in the West are not applicable to the non-Western societies. Countries like China, North Korea, Venezuela, Russia, they hold this opinion. According to them, it is not compulsory or appropriate for the Western countries to enforce their ideology on the non-Western world. For example, Russia and China, they give importance to collectivism. Society is given importance. Individual is a part of the society. So, relative, is it not? So, give examples to explain the two concepts, universalism and cultural relativism. Give current examples like Iran, North Korea, Russia. The leaders Lee Kuan Yew and Mahathir Mohamad upheld the concept of Asian values. According to them, Asian countries have their own values. They need not and should not simply ape the West. They need not imitate the Western values. They also told that it is wrong for the West to impose their ideals and values on the non-West. They viewed this as cultural imperialism. Next question B. Deliberative democracy seeks to promote democratic decision making about public issues among the citizens. The key concepts given are deliberative democracy and democratic decision making. Once again, we have to explain about democracy and you have to explain about deliberative democracy specifically. Deliberative democracy is associated mainly with Anna Arendt, Amartya Sen, John Mill and J.J. Rousseau. These individuals wanted the participation of people in the society. They viewed power positively. Okay, power to, not power over. For example, Amartya Sen argues in his book Argumentative Indians that Indians should talk with each other. We should discuss, we should debate. We should also take and analyze the opposing points of view. Anna Arendt spoke that if people do not come together in the public sphere and discuss issues concerning them, it will lead to totalitarianism. So you have to touch these scholars and ideologies under deliberative democracy. First, write about democracy in brief and then go to deliberative democracy. Mention the points regarding democracy that we already discussed. Democracy as mob rule in the ancient period. Democracy focused on man in the modern period. Procedural democracy and substantive democracy. Deliberative democracy associated with popular rule. Citizens should take part in the decision making. Decision making should embody an element of popular rule. Important scholars Mill, Anna Arendt, Amartya Sen. You can also include J.J. Rousseau. Anna Arendt, through her concept Zoon Politikon, speaks about the politically conscious individual who participates in the society, who talks with other men. Deliberative democracy. Amartya Sen's book Argumentative Indian speaks about deliberative democracy. He spoke about the capability approach. Deliberative democracy also strengthened the concepts of pluralism, which you already discussed. As more and more people engage in participating in democracy, it naturally leads to rule by the many, which is pluralism. You can give contemporary examples to explain deliberative democracy, e-democracy, deliberative opinion polls, participatory government. These are examples in the current context. In the international level, discussions done by countries at international forums like UN and so on showcase deliberative democracy at the international level. Question number C. Dharma Shastra presents a duty-centric worldview for individuals and communities. Comment. This question is from Indian Political Thought. Dharma Shastra literature, duty-centric worldview. Dharma Shastra is related to the scholar Manusmriti. The ancient philosophy is mainly based on the duties. Ancient Greek philosophy based on duties. Important scholars Aristotle and Plato. Indian ancient philosophy based on duties. Important scholars Manu and Kautilya. In the ancient past, the society was based on the state. State is prior to man. This was the maxim. In the modern period, man is prior to state. It was man who organized the state. Okay. So when we speak about the ancient philosophies in Greece, India, Rome and so on, the man was subordinated to the society. State was prior to man. The ego of the individual is subordinated to the collective ego of the state and the society. This is how we look at Dharma Shastra. State is prior to man. Plato and Aristotle can be compared with Manu and Kautilya. Once again, make your answer diversified, correlate, analyze, associate between different papers. Dharma Shastra spoke about the fulfillment of duties by citizens. Ancient Greek philosophy spoke about virtues. Individuals have to develop virtues. Developing of the virtues leads to justice or dikoiosene, which in turn leads to eudaimonia or the greatest happiness. The same was spoken by the Indian political scholars. People have to fulfill duties. This will lead to justice called dharma in the Indian context. This dharma naturally leads to the greatest happiness in the Indian state. So you associate. Dharma Shastra follows the organic theory of state. According to organic theory, state is an organism. It is ethical organism. Man is compared to an organ which is present within the organism state. So mention these concepts and then give points specific to Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra was based on organic theory and divine theory. Manu also gave the Saptanga theory or the 7 elements of the state. Ruler is divinely ordained to rule. God created the institution of kingship. In the Indian context, it is Dharma. In the Western context, it is justice or dikoiosene. In Indian context, it is Dharma. So compare, correlate. But Dharma Shastra gives duties to the king. This is very important. Greek philosophy did not give duties to the king. Even modern scholars like Hobbes made their rulers sovereign. Duties was not given to the ruler of the Hobbes. But Dharma Shastra in the ancient period gave duties to the sovereign. So mention about the duties given to the sovereign also. Dharma Shastra enriched Indian political philosophy. Realism and Machiavellianism earlier reflected in Manusmriti. Mention the view of historian and scholar Jaiswal. He tells that divine theory was advanced by Manu to oppose the social contract theory of Buddhism. Ensure that you are writing all these important points in your answer. Question number 4. A. Legitimacy adds positive value to political authority and obligation. In fact, this is a repetition of another question which you already discussed but asked indirectly. Legitimacy is related to hegemony, power, which you already discussed. You have to write it again. Legitimacy basically means fairness. If something is accepted as fair or just, it is called legitimacy. Something backed by law is also called legitimacy. So question is about how legitimacy adds positive value to political authority and obligation. Okay, here power, here it is hegemony. Right? We just have to write what we already discussed. What is power? What is legitimacy and what is hegemony? Mention the scholars concerned: Max Weber, Robert Dahl, Gramsci. Never miss Gramsci when it comes to hegemony. Gramsci was the most important scholar who gave many insights regarding hegemony. He was the one who completed the concept of hegemony, we can say. Political obligation and authority. We have to substantiate how political obligation is based on legitimacy according to different ideologies. Marxism, liberalism, organic theory, and so on. Try to write from 3 to 4 perspectives. That is enough. According to the organic theory and divine theory, the legitimacy is based on the ethical nature of the state. Man is coming under the state. Man has to perform the duties. Here, legitimacy is based on the ethical nature of the state. State is ethical. State is sacrosanct. I have to follow. This is the understanding. Next, liberalism. According to liberalism, legitimacy is based on the individual. Individuals are equal in the state of nature. According to natural rights theory, they sign a social contract and establish the state. Here, legitimacy is based on the social contract. Hobbes was an absolutist. He gave more powers to the sovereign. But the father of liberalism, John Locke, gave more powers to the individual. He gave duties to the sovereign. This is the difference between Lockean philosophy and Hobbesian philosophy. But the legitimacy is based on the power in the hands of the sovereign according to Hobbes, and the social contract and the law of nature and power in the hands of the people in case of John Locke. According to Marxism, legitimacy is created by liberalism in a fake manner. It talks about manufacturing of consent. The bourgeois manufactures values. The bourgeois values are taken as the values by the state. Bourgeois proletariat. Seen through ownership of capital, we have the worker and the capitalist. Seen through the larger society, capitalist also becomes a bourgeois, worker also becomes a proletariat. The bourgeois is not the only owner of the capital, he is also the owner of the mental production. The values are given by the bourgeois, these values are taken by the proletariats. Ultimately, these values form the basis for liberal democracies. Next question. Plato's theory of forms. Rather straightforward question. Plato was an idealist, father of political philosophy and political theory. We have to write the important points regarding Plato. He was an idealist. Who is idealist? Person giving importance to mind, idea, thought. This person is called idealist. According to idealist, the actual world is present in the realm of ideas. The world that we see is actually a fake world. It is a visible world. We are in the visible world. But this is not the real world. The actual world or the realm of ideas is the real world. In the visible world, we have only appearance. We can pass opinion about the appearance. In the actual world or the ideal world, there is knowledge. We can gain knowledge. There is thought process. Mind is involved. This is the understanding of idealism according to Plato. He is explaining his theory of forms using the allegory of the cave. You would have studied allegory of the cave. He is comparing the mind, idea and knowledge with the invisible world we are yet to see. Within a cave, some people are chained and they are unable to see the real world outside. But the outside world is the actual world or the realm of ideas. What they are actually seeing is the wall of the cave in which they are seeing the images of objects. This is nothing but the visible world. Visible world is not the real world. So he tells that this is how humans are living in this world as of now. We can't access the invisible world or the actual world or the world of ideas. We can reach the actual world or the realm of ideas through knowledge. If we obtain knowledge, we can access the actual world. The journey from the visible world to the invisible world or the ideal world is through knowledge only. This is Plato's theory of forms. Idea and form, ideal, appearances, opinion. Collectivist ideologies like fascism themselves were based on idealism only. So you can correlate using examples. Unlike Plato, Hegel and others, Marx was a materialist. According to materialist, human mind itself is a reflection of matter or the material world. According to idealist, the idea or the mind shapes matter. According to materialist, mind itself is a form of matter. It is matter or the material world which shapes the mind. Mind is related to ideas, but mind itself is a form of matter. It is based on the material world. A girl is seeing a handsome boy. The girl is now starting to like the handsome boy. The materialist will tell that the love in the mind of the girl is based on the material world or the matter. Here, boy is a part of the material world. He is matter. This matter, part of the material world, influence the mind of the girl. This is the understanding of materialism. This is a simple example for you to understand. Question C. M. Roy's political thought highlighted the humanistic aspects of Marxism. Discuss. This is from Indian political thought. M. Roy, a Marxist scholar in Indian political philosophy. He initially started as an orthodox Marxist. He later became a humanist. He contributed to radical humanism and radical democracy. So this is the essence regarding M. Roy's political thought. So initially followed orthodox Marxism. War of Maneuver. He started as a revolutionary. He was associated with Yugandhar party. Marxists consider nationalism as opposed to humanism. According to them, humanism and nationalism are opposite concepts. That is why Marxists don't give importance to the concept of nation. According to Marxists, invariably all the freedom struggle movements are bourgeois movements. Nationalism itself is a bourgeois construct. Nationalism is against humanism. Nationalism is against the freedom of man. This is the understanding of Marxists. This is how M. Roy is starting his political journey. Later, he started questioning orthodox Marxism. He became a radical humanist. Radical humanism gives importance to the human being as a rational agent. Man is rational. Man is given importance. Man is capable of deciding what is good for him. He can make himself a better individual. He can also contribute to the society. This is radical humanism. Radical humanism is mainly associated with M. Roy. Radical humanism described by M. Roy. According to him, parliamentary democracy is inadequate. He is arguing for radical democracy. He is also against fascism because it subsumes man under the collective ego of the nation. At the same time, he is against orthodox Marxism. He tells that communism is not liberating because it also subsumes man under the collective ego of the class. Marxism subsumes under class. Fascism subsumes under nation. That is not a big difference. This is the view of M. Roy. So he is arguing for radical humanism. Radical humanism is based on freedom, reason, and ethics. In fact, you can see a radical humanist in Gandhi, Marx, as well as M. Roy. All these individuals gave importance to humanity. They are optimistic of the power of man to regulate himself and also contribute to the society. These scholars also opposed the concentration of power in the hands of an institution called the state. We will now solve section B question. Excuse me. A. Constitutional morality. Constitutional morality basically means upholding the principles and values in the Constitution. Constitutional morality can be traced back to the making of the American Constitution. The Constitution fathers of America, Madison, Jefferson, others, they want to embed all the principles and values in the Constitution itself, so that all the citizens as well as the rulers will be forced to follow these values. There won't be any breach. Similar understanding was held by Dr. Ambedkar. He was of the view that all the principles, values, they should be clearly coded in the Constitution itself, so that no ruler in the future can make use of any loopholes in the Constitution to breach these principles. So this showcases the concept constitutional morality. So this is what you have to write. Since this is section B question, you also have to write from a Indian government and politics point of view. You can give more stuff from current affairs as well as GS. Principles and values, equality between citizens, separation of power, the term constitutional morality not explicitly mentioned in the Indian Constitution, but it is embedded in several of its sections. Example, preamble, fundamental rights, fundamental duties and DPSP. Dr. Ambedkar was a strong supporter of constitutional morality. In fact, Nehru himself was not a strong supporter of constitution, but Dr. Ambedkar was. Ambedkar and Nehru both were liberals, both gave importance to the state. Gandhi was against the concept of the state. Gandhi is more like Marx, he was against it. But comparing Nehru and Ambedkar, Nehru was more of a revolutionary compared to Ambedkar. So Ambedkar was a strong constitutionalist. Equality, freedom, secularism, mention this concept. Also write about judicial review and judicial activism. Mention about the basic structure doctrine. The basic structure doctrine was a judicial innovation in India. The basic structure doctrine safeguards the important principles in the constitution. It means that constitutional morality is enforced through the basic structure doctrine invented by the Indian judiciary. Next question, question B, objective resolution of the Constituent Assembly. Rather simple question, but you have to touch the subject core in section A. There are two types of law, natural law and positive law. Natural law is based on the values and morals inherent in human beings. Positive law is man-made law. Okay, this is the difference between natural law and positive law. Indian Constitution is positive law. We Indians formulated the Constitution legally according to the preamble. But the positive law Constitution itself is based on our values. Got it? So natural law reflects in positive law. You can find this in the Constitution. So Constitution reflects the natural law. The ideals, values, norms, aspirations of the people are reflecting in the positive law Constitution. A blueprint was put forward by Jawaharlal Nehru called objective resolution. So objective resolution is nothing but a blueprint which is talking about the important values that have to be brought in the Indian Constitution. So these points have to be present in the answer. Before that, mention the views of scholars. According to Paul Brass, Constitution of India is framed not in an atmosphere of optimism but amidst fear and trepidation. He gives a critical view of the Indian Constitution. He tells that the Constitution is not the will of the people. It was enforced on the people. It was formulated to secure the sovereignty of the country, so it is not the real will of the people. This is the understanding of Paul Brass. Similarly, some scholars view a negative opinion of the Constituent Assembly. They call it the Assembly of Brahmins and Assembly of Lawyers. At the same time, many scholars have a positive opinion on the Constituent Assembly. They tell that even though Constituent Assembly is made up of the educated Western middle class, it was still inclusive. It represented the viewpoints of most sections of society. Then explain natural law, positive law. The intentions and ambitions of those who designed the Indian Constitution are embodied in the objective resolution submitted by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1946. Resolutions were included in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So the objective resolutions actually contribute to constitutional morality, which we discussed in the last answer. So all concepts are interrelated. Objective resolution, positive law, natural law, constitutional morality. That is why the Supreme Court upheld that the preamble is a part of the Indian Constitution. Question C, legal remedies in Part 3 of the Constitution of India. Legal remedies are related to fundamental rights. So you have to touch fundamental rights from Indian perspective. Also touch rights from a broader perspective from Section A and write about Article 32. Very simple. According to Lasky, rights are those conditions of social life without which No man can seek in general to be himself at the best. Natural rights concept under liberalism contributed to individual rights. According to natural rights theory, all men are born equal in the state of nature. We can be created by God, or we can consider that we are creations of nature. In any way, we are equal foundationally. This is natural rights. Natural rights theory later contributed to social contract theory. These two theories are the basis of liberalism. So touch all these concepts: natural rights, social contract, liberalism, man is prior to state. Now coming to Indian perspective, we have the fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution under Part 2, under which Part 3, under which Article 32. This is seen as the most important article under the Indian Constitution. It is nothing but the legal remedies. Dr. Ambedkar called Article 32 as the most important article under the Indian Constitution. He called it the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. It provides the power of issuing writs to the Supreme Court and the High Court. So, right to constitutional remedies stands as a cornerstone of democracy and justice. It acts as a bulwark against tyranny. It embodies the essence of vibrant and inclusive democracy. You can further give some examples based on the judicial review done by Supreme Court in the recent past. Question D, relevance of the Legislative Council. Please touch section A and come to section B. What is the Legislative Council? Legislative Council is the second house at the state. Some states have Legislative Council. At the center, we have two houses, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Similarly, some states have two houses at the state level. So the additional legislature is called the Legislative Council. How can we look at the Legislative Council? Can we look at the Legislative Council as a form of an ancient democracy? In ancient Greece, the ancient democracy was seen through the legislature called ecclesia. It was a form of direct democracy. Then came indirect democracy or representative democracy. So touch these concepts. We can see philosopher kings in the Legislative Council. Philosopher king spoken by Plato and Aristotle. Philosopher kings are people, rulers having virtues. They are best equipped to rule, is it not? Now apply this to Legislative Council as well as Rajya Sabha. In Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies of state, there could be hasty decision making. Laws could have some defects. Now who is present to give the opinion and act as a moderator? It is the other house. It is Rajya Sabha in case of center and Legislative Council in the case of state. So mention the concept philosopher king. Then mention the role of the Legislative Council. You can write what you studied in GS. You can also briefly highlight the shortcomings and drawback. It has limited powers. At the most, it can delay legislation. It is considered a burden on the state budget. It is also used by political parties to park leaders who are not able to win assembly election. So briefly write about the shortcomings. Ultimately, Legislative Council does not play a substantive role in the body politic. At the same time, it can be made good use of through proper political will. Always give a balanced conclusion. Your conclusion should be based on relevance as well as a criticism. Question E, women's role in anti-Iraq movement. You have to touch paper 1 section A once again, write about feminism and then go to section B. According to feminism, man and women are equal. Currently, patriarchy leads to the subjugation of women. Apart from this, men are seen as creations of culture, women are seen as creatures of nature. Mention this point. Patriarchy leads to the destruction of nature. On the other hand, women represent nature. They are associated with protection. So touch these points. Then write about the anti-Iraq movement. You can use the knowledge obtained from GS. Anti-Iraq movement started by the poor women in Andhra Pradesh state in Nellore district in the 1990s. It reflects the role of women as protectors of nature. It is also related to livelihood. So economic aspect is present. Protection and environmental aspect is present. Even though it is a fight against Iraq, the protection of the larger society and nature is very important here. Literacy campaign influenced this movement. It gave emancipation for the women. It attracted women from all corners of the society. The women also raised livelihood issues like drinking water and others. Question number 6. How far do you agree that the directive principles of state policy are more fundamental than the fundamental rights in meeting socio-economic justice as mentioned in the preamble of the Constitution? Once again, start with section A. DPSP related to the ancient philosophy of duties. Duties for the king. Is it not? Kautilya gave duties for the king. DPSP is giving duties for the Indian state. Correlate accordingly. On the other hand, fundamental rights is related to liberalism. Man is prior to state. Here, duty is given to the state. The duty of the state is to protect the life, liberty and personal property of the individual. So you have to correlate from citizen perspective as well as state perspective. Touch ancient philosophy as well as modern philosophy. You have to mention the maxims. Man is prior to state and state is prior to man. Fundamental rights mainly protect the man. More related to liberalism. Here duties are given to the state. Directive principles give duties to the state. Directive principles can be associated with developmental democracy, associated with socialism, associated with welfare state. Scholars involved: John Mill, Amartya Sen, J.J. Rousseau. Fundamental rights related to classical liberalism. Related scholar: Hobbes, Rousseau, Locke, James Madison. So connect like this. So explain directive principles and fundamental rights based on the subject essence of PSIR, mentioning the related ideologies and scholars. You can bring in stuff from GS. In the ancient period, the king had duties. The king has to ensure happiness or eudaimonia in the ancient Greek state. In the modern period, the liberal theory puts a duty on the state and the ruler to protect the life, liberty and private property. Nevertheless, duties are given to the ruler or the king. Dr. Ambedkar called the DPSP as novel features of Indian Constitution. DPSP constitute a comprehensive socio-economic and political program in order to achieve socio-economic justice and foundation of a modern welfare state. Ensure that you are writing these key concepts in your answers. You can write DPSP further taking from GS and you have to substantiate how the DPSP are more fundamental than the fundamental rights. You can quote different judgments of the Supreme Court as well as observations where the Supreme Court has given importance to both fundamental duties and the fundamental rights. Case on the bar, the case is an important case. Earlier, fundamental rights are held superior to DPSP. Even now, the fundamental rights are a step above the DPSP, but the state should always try to implement the DPSP wherever there is an opportunity. DPSP non-justiciable, fundamental rights justiciable, but wherever there is an opportunity, it won't be considered illegal or against the constitution if the state tries to implement the DPSP using any law. So mention these points which you have studied from GS. So they are complementary to each other. They are also supplementary to each other. In the answer telling that they are complementary as well as supplementary. The DPSPs are more important from a developmental point of view, social justice point of view, and from a welfare state point of view. In the words of Dr. Ambedkar, FR and DPSP constitute the philosophy of the constitution and is the soul of the constitution. According to Granville, FR and DPSP constitute the conscience of the constitution. You can further give points from the current perspective. Even today, DPSP is highly relevant. In the era of LPG, there is heavy inequality in India. The social justice still need to be taken to many sections of society. So DPSP is still relevant. So in the answer like this, DPSP can help attain an ideal welfare state in India, reducing economic disparities, protecting environment and wildlife, welfare of weaker sections. Next question. Explain the structure and functions of NCW, National Commission of Women. Another straightforward question. Associate with section A of paper 1. You have to touch feminism. Briefly write about liberal feminism and radical feminism. Tell why women need to be liberated, and then write from an Indian perspective. Feminism based on patriarchy and power differential between man and women. Feminists argue for gender justice. They need equality between man and women. So write gender justice. Mention that women are a weaker class. What class is for Marxists? Gender is for feminists. Give some jargons and phrases to explain the concept. Women suffer from womb to tomb. TOE report 1974 towards equality report talks about the need for empowerment of women in India. Later, National Commission for Women was established as an institution. So feminism is ideology, NCW is the institution, is it not? Ideology, philosophy led to the institution. Mention the functions of NCW. You can take from GS. Reviewing the development of women, reasons for deprived status, take up cases of violations, take part in the planning mechanism, take due mode of action if necessary. So write briefly. I have given the points in detail. You can write the important points, the relevant ones, the most relevant ones. Also write about the effectiveness of the NCW. Many scholars have criticized the NCW. An important criticism is NCW is just a National Commission for Women and not National Commission of Women, which means this commission is taking care of women, but women are not the decision maker. Power is not in the hands of women. So this is an important remark regarding NCW. Apart from this, NCW suffers from many problems. MCW itself suffers from a patriarchal mindset. Unfortunately, some members are patriarchal. The NCW is supported by government funding. As a result, it is unable to file complaints against armed forces. It is unable to talk about issues that are critical of the ruling government. So mention the shortcomings and weaknesses of NCW. Question C. Legacy of the Planning Commission still has a bearing on India's development politics. Planning Commission is related to the concept developmental democracy. It is related to the concept socialism. It is related to India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. It is related to the concept self-reliance, capacity and development. So touch these concepts. Associated with democratic socialism, which is the Indian brand of socialism. It combines values of liberal democracy with that of Marxian socialism. Influenced by first PM Nehru ji. It is based on centralized planning. Influence of socialist states like USSR and China scene. Determination of the priorities and going for the best possible utilization. Focused on heavy industries, centralized planning and public sector enterprises. So bring these points from GS. But these points should be written based on a PSIR subject framework, mentioning about developmental democracy, welfare state and so on. Gandhi was against state-led development. Ambedkar and Nehru, they were for state-led development. Then write about Planning Commission, focuses on growth, self-reliance and balanced development, reflects people's democracy as in socialism, also reflects developmental democracy. Developmental democracy talks about the liberty of people, which is used by the people for the realization of their powers. With that, they can develop themselves. This is called developmental democracy. Ensure to give a strong subject core. Without strong subject core, our answers will look like GS answers. We may lose marks. So if you want to cross 260, you have to give a strong subject core. You may even score above 280. You can briefly write about the relevance of Planning Commission in the present period. After 1991, India is suffering from problems like economic inequality, deprivation. Many sections are marginalized. So the philosophy of the Planning Commission is still relevant. Even though Planning Commission may be replaced by Niti Aayog, the philosophy of Planning Commission is still relevant. So conclude the answer. You can also mention about Amartya Sen, who spoke about developmental democracy. According to him, development should be viewed as an effort to advance the real freedoms that individuals enjoy rather than focusing on metrics such as GDP. So Planning Commission's ideology was based on the welfare of the people. Question number 7. A. Discuss the contribution of the Dalit struggle to establish egalitarianism in Indian society during freedom movement. You have to associate these concepts, core concepts. Dalit struggle is based on praxis or political action. Dalit struggle, Dalit movement is also related to subaltern struggles. Subaltern refers to the marginalized sections of society. Dalit struggle is based on war of maneuver. War of maneuver is revolutionary struggle. On the other hand, Gandhian strategy is based on war of position. So touch these key points. Dalit perspective mainly contributed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Before B.R. Ambedkar, it was Jyotiba Phule in Western India. So mention these scholars. Focus mainly on Ambedkar. EVR was an important leader in South India, Madras region. The main discourse of the Dalit perspective was that nationalist discourse was elitist and against the abolition of caste. The Marxist view of freedom struggle is that Indian nationalism was bourgeois nationalism. It was against the freedom of man. It was not giving importance to the class concept. Similarly, Dalit perspective of Indian movement tells that the nationalism itself was against equality. It was not giving importance to equality. It was concealing the caste system. So this is the major understanding. Dr. Ambedkar was greatly influenced by the American Revolution, French Revolution, and liberal scholars such as John Mill. Dr. Ambedkar clearly tells The independence struggle should be based on liberty, equality, and fraternity. Three ideals seen in the French struggle. Liberty, free. Fraternity, you and I are brothers. And liberty, fraternity, and equality. You and I should be equal. I should not consider you inferior. I should consider you as my brother. Only in this case, you and I are fit to fight for independence. This is the understanding. The Americans fought for independence in this manner only. They first agreed that all Americans are equal. And then they decided to fight for independence. In case of India's freedom struggle, the freedom struggle was mainly focusing on the liberation of India from British imperialism, but it was not focusing on the liberation of the backward classes of society from the discrimination. So this forms a background for the Dalit struggle of the Indian freedom movement. You can quote the important remarks of Dr. Ambedkar. He opposed Tilak. He told that if Tilak was born untouchable, he would have said annihilation of caste would be his birthright. Ambedkar opposed Gandhi. According to Dalit perspective, nationalism is negation of casteism and communalism and is rooted in humanism. For both Marxists and Dalits, nationalism should be based on humanism. If it is not based on humanism, it is of no use. It is nothing but bourgeois nationalism or upper class or upper caste nationalism. Dr. Ambedkar focused on social, economic, and political equality. Without social equality, there won't be economic and political equality. So, social equality forms the basis. At the same time, social equality and economic equality can be enforced through political means, which is affirmative action. The communal award was seen as a solution to ensuring the liberation of the masses. So it is nothing but a remedy. This is Dr. Ambedkar's argument. Political means should be used to achieve social equality and economic equality. Remember, Dr. Ambedkar was the economist also. He was a liberal politically, he was an economist socially. He was also a humanist. So there are many attributes to Dr. Ambedkar. No wonder he is called the father of Indian Constitution. Dalit perspective advocated rectificatory justice. And you can end the answer telling that the Dalit perspective of the Indian national movement is similar to the black movement conducted by black people across the world who fought for their freedom, fought against discrimination. Question B. Blueprint of Gram Swaraj is a key to understanding the Gandhian perspective of planning. Another straightforward question. Scholar associated is Gandhi. Concept involved is Gram Swaraj. Gram Swaraj itself is based on participatory democracy, developmental democracy. Marx and Gandhi, they are similar as far as their view on state is concerned. Both are against the concept of state. Gandhi called state a soulless machine. He told that state wields power, which is wrong. There is no need for power. He had a positive understanding of humans. What communism was for Marx, Ram Rajya or enlightened anarchy was for Gandhi. According to Marx, the final stage of human history is communism. According to Gandhi, the final phase of human history is Ram Rajya. It is called Ram Rajya, but it is not a system related to religion. Name only is Ram Rajya. In Ram Rajya or enlightened anarchy, there won't be state. The people will have complete freedom. Using the freedom, they should regulate themselves, develop themselves, and they should contribute to the society. Right? This understanding of Gandhi forms the basis of Gram Swaraj. He tells that state is needed till a particular period until we reach Ram Rajya. So till that stage, state is required, but this state is not based on a top-down approach. This is based on a bottom-up approach. This is called Gram Swaraj. So touch all these concepts. Then you can bring points from GS. Gandhi, existentialist, collectivist, humanist, and spiritual nationalist. He was influenced by Leo Tolstoy, Henry Thoreau. Compare Marx with Gandhi to enrich your answer. Both argued for a classless and stateless society. Both are against the concept of state. Gandhi batted for Ram Rajya or enlightened anarchy. His view was similar to that of J.J. Rousseau and Hannah Arendt. Swaraj basically means self-rule. It reconciles collectivism with humanism. Man is located in the society. Man is important. Society is also important. Swaraj existed in oceanic circle of village republic. In Swaraj, people would be guided by condition of nature, customary rights and duties and belief in God. Okay. So they will be guided by their human nature. There won't be requirement for a state. Gandhi's concept of Gram Swaraj forms the basis of 73rd Amendment, which led to the Panchayati Raj system in India. Mention this. Make your answer rich. Correlate. It is similar to the commune system mentioned in socialism. Gandhi advocated spiritual development and harmony with a rejection of materialism. Question C. Critically assess the role of pressure groups in the decision-making process of the government. Here, the key concept is power, participatory democracy, pluralism, and so on. Mention these key concepts. Take from paper 1 section A. Then write elaborately about pressure groups. Okay. Pressure groups are present in many societies, but they are strong in developed societies. They exist along with political parties. In case of West, the pressure groups are very professionals. They have autonomy. In case of non-Western societies and developing countries like India, they are not autonomous. They are junior partners of the political parties. Bring in these points. And ensure to discuss the concepts regarding democracy, deliberative, participatory. Right. Pressure group of people who are organized for promoting and defending their common interest, showcases pluralism, showcases participatory democracy, showcases deliberately democracy, showcases developmental democracy. Pressure groups serve to articulate the interest of different sections of society. The scholar Feiner called pressure groups as invisible empires. They reflect pluralism. We can't see them. We can actually see pressure groups through concept pluralism. Political parties are visible on the outside. Pressure groups are invisible. But pressure groups have their power. They influence the political parties and they assert their will in democracy. Mention scholar J.J. Rousseau, Hegel, Hannah Arendt, and write from a GS perspective. You can use GS knowledge, types of pressure groups, institutional, associational, non-associational, and so on. Differentiate the nature of PGs in developed states and developing states. You can end the answer telling that pressure groups showcase pluralism. They make democracies vibrant, plural, dynamic. Question number 8A. Discuss the role of environmental movements in shaping the environmental governance in India. Once again, you have to touch section A. Associated concepts are liberalism, man is prior to state, deliberative democracy, civil society. So touch and then come to Indian perspective. So it is liberalism which gave the opportunity for people to conduct movements around the world. Man is prior to state, rights of the individual. Social movements are influenced by liberalism. Social movements are initiated by civil society, which is seen as a realm of altruism compared to the private sphere of family. Mention these points. Then right from GS, different types of environmental movement. The important types are eco-feminist, eco-Marxist, Gandhian and alternative. Environmental movements in India based on development and democracy. It also showcases the environmentalism of the poor. Chipko movement is an example of environmentalism of the poor. It also showcases feminism. The women hug the trees in Uttarakhand to protect them from being felled in the name of development. So mention about the Chipko movement. Right, the scholar's view. You can mention Ramachandra Guha's view, who remarked about the Chipko movement in India. He remarks that women played a prominent role in it and added a new dimension. Thus, environmental movements strengthened democracy by demanding liberty and rights, especially those of the marginalized, discriminated and poor sections. In the developed world, civil society is well developed. In developing world, it is relatively weaker. You can also add that we can expect to see more environmental movements in the future in the wake of development and globalization, and also through the challenge coming from climate change. Question B. Relative deprivation is a major source of ethnic conflict. Elaborate the statement with relevant examples. Relative deprivation is related to the Marxian concept alienation. Marx tells that the producing class suffers because it is separated from the product. This is called alienation. So this is the economic understanding regarding the discrimination in the society. So you can quote Marxism and alienation. Coming to the Indian perspective, we are asked to write about relative deprivation and its connection with ethnic conflicts. So briefly write about the ethnic diversity in India and explain how conflicts arise due to relative deprivation. Ethnicity a major factor. Some countries are homogeneous in culture. They are called cultural nations. Example, Israel, European states. On the other hand, states like India and US, we are political nations. These countries have so many cultures. They are ethnically diverse. Indian model is called the salad bowl model. Various cultures coexisting but not fused. On the other hand, American model is seen as a melting pot. The cultures have fused and created new cultural complexes. In the words of Professor James Manner, ethnicity in India is based on religion, language, race and caste. So explain first about the concept ethnicity and its understanding based on political science. Write the view of scholars. Scholars like Rudolph and Rudolph, Atul Kohli and Rajni Kothari. They tell that when democracy is introduced in a traditional society, it is natural to see ethnic mobilization by the elites. Mention this point. Dipankar Gupta tells that ethnicity is not a popular passion, but a preference of elites in India. As a result, ethnic identity leads to sons of the soil policy. It was seen in the past, it is seen even now. Maharashtra, South India, Assam are some examples showcasing sons of the soil policy. Different ethnicities showcase their identity and try to maximize power. They argue that they should be given first preference in the enjoyment of the resources and opportunities. So we are substantiating ethnic conflicts based on relative deprivation. Related deprivation, mention Marxism, alienation. We can take Northeast as a case study. Latest crisis is the Kuki-Meitei conflict. Land alienation, competition over natural resources are major problems in Northeast. For example, the inner line permit system. It is a law that provides preference to the local people. Outsiders are prevented from entering the region without permission. Mention the ideology multiculturalism. Scholar associated is Will Kimlicka. Problems of unemployment are seen. It has also led to insurgency and secessionist movement in the northeastern region. So you can give a case study to substantiate your answer. Last question, C. Gram Sabha in the Panchayat Raj system is a forum which gives expression to the collective wisdom, aspirations and the will of the people. We've already discussed this. The key concepts involved here are participatory democracy, developmental democracy, will of the people, grassroots level participation, J.J. Rousseau, Gandhi, Anna Arendt, and so on. Also tell that the 73rd Amendment of India is a result of the quest for grassroots level democracy. So you have to write the points which you already discussed. Mention about Gandhi, most important scholar. Gandhi envisioned village republics in India. In contrast, Nehru and Ambedkar preferred state-led development. The debates are still going on. According to many scholars, the Panchayat Raj system itself is based on bureaucracy. It is one of the major weaknesses. Instead, Panchayat Raj institution should be based on the collective participation of the people from grassroots level. So highlight these points and come specifically to Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha is the most important institution in the Panchayat Raj. So you can simply write from GS. Gram Sabha, similar to direct democracy in ancient Greece, ecclesia, showcases participatory democracy. It is a legislative body which operates at the village level. It elects the members of Gram Panchayat. So write the functions. Also highlight the important shortcomings in Gram Sabha. You can quote the view of important scholars. These are the important problems. PRI is not fully empowered. Lack of capacity building. Ashok Mehta, expert, he studied about the Panchayat Raj. He mentioned that leadership at the state level and local bureaucracy did not allow PRIs to function properly. So the state level administration is not devolving power properly to the PRI. The bureaucracy is the main culprit. They think that proper implementation of PRIs would place power in the hands of the people. As a result, they have concentrated power in their own hands. Comparing India with China, China is not a democracy, but local governance is much better in China. You can compare with China. Sudha Pai, she talks about the term Panchayat, Pati Panchayat, proxy candidature. Even though women are provided reservation, in many cases, they are under the control of their husbands. This is called Pati Panchayat. You can conclude the answer giving the way forward. PRI should be given autonomy. They should be empowered politically and economically. We should implement the recommendations of 14th and 15th Commission. Kerala is the role model as far as the Panchayati Raj system is concerned. It has implemented code of conduct for both civil servant and political representatives. This can be taken as a role model. Vijay Kelkar suggested that GST be shared with Panchayats. It is also prudent to establish Panchayat Ombudsman who can prevent corruption and ensure accountability at the lowest level of administration in India. We have completed analyzing the questions in paper 1. I hope you got a fair idea, understanding of writing answers for the mains examination. Thank you very much.